Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Write or Die Show. I'm your host, Randi-lee. On the show, we interview other writers and we talk about mental health from their personal journeys. If you have not already hit that like and subscribe button, go ahead, do that now so that you never miss an episode. So today with us, we have Chris K. Jones. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks you for having me on the show, Randy. Really appreciate it.
And where are you visiting from?
I live in Tarrytown, New York, just north of New York City, and I also go back and forth to Barbados. So I have a home down
Oh,
there as well. And
that
that's where I
sounds
wrote my novel.
awesome. I've never been to Barbados, but it's a place I want to visit.
It's a beautiful island. People are wonderful. Food is great. The beaches are the best in the world. I love it. I went down there during the pandemic, and that's where I wrote my
Oh.
novel, my first novel, Head Case. And yeah, it's been a wonderful place to have a creative journey as well as um, it wasn't too bad looking out at the ocean while you write your novel.
Yeah, really. I like look out to rain right now, so
It's raining here
ew.
as well in New York, so
Well, I'm not that far. I'm just across the border on the other side in Ontario, so not
okay,
too
great.
far. I mean, not that New York is right on the border, like New York City, but I mean, the state is, so close
Right.
enough. Excellent. All right, so tell us a little bit more about who are you?
It's funny, like when I my Buddhist teacher, we once talked about, why I was asked those questions, who are we? Who are we? And he posed the counter question, say, well, why are we? So rather than who are we, why am I here? Why do I exist? What is my purpose and role in life? So I see like my why is my mission to really raise awareness towards mental health in sports and generational trauma in general. So that's why I write. Those are the things that I really enjoy doing. And hopefully my stories can help people to inspire and heal themselves. And they can learn from either the things that really happened to me in life or just the things that happened to my characters.
Cool. So I have a new guest on the show right now. I did not realize. So I try to keep the cats out while I'm recording, but it doesn't always work. So this one for everybody who can see, this one is Smokey. I don't think Smokey's made an appearance on the show yet. It's usually Neo. Um, but this one is Smokey. So we'll see how good she is, because sometimes she likes to knock my camera over and such. But and for everybody who's listening and can't see, she is a beautiful black fluffy kitty, very, very fluffy.
Very fluffy. Yeah, I even some of her hair went up with the camera.
Yeah, it's all over the place all the time. There's my kid was like, "We need lint rollers." And I'm like, "What's the point? Like seriously, we have seven animals. Like it's not
Oh
going to
my
do any
God,
good." Yes, we
that's a
have four
lot.
cats and three dogs.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's a
I
pretty
have
big house. So
I have four plants that I struggle to keep alive, and that's about it.
my my husband just last night actually he got these succulents for his birthday, which is back in August, and he's like, I can't kill these. These are great. I water them like once every couple weeks. It's perfect. I'm like, yeah, because I have when we first started dating, he got me bamboo,
Hmm.
going, oh, you can't kill this. Oh, yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Yeah, I think I've done that too. So
Yeah, yeah. All right, so you've kind of given us a little bit of segue in already about mental health. So it sounds like we're going
Mm,
to talk about it in relation to sports, which for anybody
sure.
that's been following the show, you know that's kind of also part of my jam. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, I've always like had a real interest in what happens when athletes fail and how they recover. I had success, but also failure, and
What
even from
sport did you
watching,
play?
I well, high school soccer, wrestling, college, I wrestled, and then after college, I competed in judo. I switched from wrestling to judo, as well as I coached soccer.
Nice. Okay.
So yeah, so I competed at a pretty high level,
Hmm.
and it was oh wow, the cat's giving me the eyes now.
I think she sees something outside. There's a window
Yeah.
right there, but it totally looked like she was giving you the eyes.
Yeah, she did. So yeah, so I competed in those areas, and some of the things that established for me why I I definitely struggled in some areas, but the one thing that I struggled with was the whole cutting weight and making weight, and which eventually led to an eating disorder and becoming bulimic. My parents would, have to eat dinner and then I go upstairs and I throw it up so I could make weight. And that led into a lot more things around body issues, as well as just dealing with bulimia even after I stopped wrestling in my 20s and moved on to
Yeah.
martial arts, but it was
Let's
still like some of that.
Yeah, let's talk about that a heck of a lot
Mm.
more. So, in my other life, I also competed in martial arts. So I was a kickboxer.
Oh, cool.
Again, very high level. I was on Team Canada a couple times. I went to Worlds. I went to the Pan Americans. I have a whole bunch of medals sitting downstairs in my basement. My body decided I wasn't going to do that this year, so I'm not. But cutting weight, yes, that was the biggest struggle. It's easy to fight. It is not easy to prepare to fight. Um, and that cutting weight was huge. And now I didn't go um to the bulimia side, but I was more of the watch every single calorie, let me eat lettuce because it's basically crunchy water 24/7. So
Right.
very close to the anorexic side. At the time, my coach wanted me to fight at 112 pounds, which is very, very small. And even my husband was like, don't you ever go, like, if you ever are able to fight again, he goes, don't ever go to that weight class again. It was horrible. I'm like, yeah. But
That very similar experience where, coaches, they kind of convince you you'll be competitive at this lower weight, but you're not eating. And then you're so much weaker. And so
exactly.
my battle became less with my opponent and just with the scale. And I was just happy if I made weight. I wasn't even thinking about the match. And I became obsessed with that. I mean, I had
Yeah.
two sets of clothes, one when I played soccer, and then another one for wrestling, which all had, drawstrings because I couldn't keep pants on,
Yeah.
make people cry when they looked at me. And, and I just got really, more obsessed with that. And it led to a lot of unhealthy attitudes towards body image, as well as just, the bulimia does a toll on your body, your
Mhm.
esophagus and my stomach. And it got so bad later on that, even when I would eat, even when I didn't want to throw up, I did.
Mhm.
So, eventually, fortunate, I have a strong will either way, which can be a bad thing. If I put my mind to something, I'm going to go through it, even if it's unhealthy, as well as when I made the healthy choice. So when I was I think it was like 21 or 22, we all had a dinner with my buddies, and we all cooked together, a bunch of college guys cooking, and we had a great dinner. And then
I
after
have to let the
that,
cat out. Sorry.
okay,
Okay, sorry about that.
and then after that, I got sick, and my one roommate said, that's not normal. And he was right. And I started taking a look at it. And the one thing I tend to do is go deep and try to find something. And so after that, I just sort of stopped and I never did it again. And then when I went to judo, which was also my Buddhist teacher told me to take judo. I was doing kickboxing and judo. And then I got punched in the face really hard. And I said, you know what? I need my brain. And
Yeah.
I don't want to get punched in the face. So, you know, he said, go take judo, and I did, and it was really good for me because I believe everything in life is reincarnation. So the world gives you and the universe gives you all these opportunities to do things over again where we made mistakes. And so for me, going back to judo, competing at almost, uh, I guess around over 30 pounds more than what I wrestled at, but I was my natural weight, and I did really well. Won state championships, and things went up through the ranks, and it was a much more healthy environment for me to be in, and an approach where I ate the night before a match, which was really something. So
Mhm.
then I could focus on winning and losing, and even then when I did lose, I'd get very obsessive and work twice as hard and watch film over and over and over again. So, all that always made me think, and this is just at, the amateur level. I wasn't going to, although I trained with the Olympic teams, I wasn't an Olympian. and I was a throw dummy for basically for the women. They threw me around. But it was an honor to go train with them and
Hmm.
just be there and be around them. Uh, and then as being able to look at this, and I really wanted to understand like what happens in an athlete's mind, what do they do. So the premise of the story of Head Case, which is about the go-to sports psychologist for troubled athletes, but he's got his own childhood traumas and gambling issues, and he gets into big trouble. It was like, okay, would they go see a sports psychologist? Well, what happens if that sports psychologist has more issues than the athletes he's treating?
Mm.
Doctor, heal thyself. So it was really working through that. I mean, people ask me if I have the same characteristic as my protagonist, and no, I don't gamble, and I don't do a lot of the things that he does, and so we're very, very different. But I can still see his world. So I always wanted to, try to be able to bring a story to life that talks about mental health and generational trauma in a way that's entertaining and still gets the message across, rather
Yeah.
than a nonfiction book which just tells about my life or things like that. So to me, someone said this, I can't take credit for it, that nonfiction conveys information through data, where fiction conveys information through imagination,
Interesting.
which is more me. And I have a vivid imagination, and coming up with world building and things like that is a lot of fun. and
Yeah.
and honestly, I say that writing my book was the best form of therapy I ever had.
I've so said that. Yeah.
Yeah, have you?
Oh yeah.
What was your experience when you were writing, and the things you had to process?
Um, well, I'll go with the most recent one, because I've written a few different ones. So the most recent one, it actually doesn't come out until next year, but it's finished now. And it's about my brother's death, who died by a drug overdose.
Okay.
So writing that, and it is a nonfiction. So I am trying to teach through data, and I'm okay with it.
That's
Um,
fine.
yeah, there's something for everyone out there, really. Um,
100%.
but going through that really helped to process the emotions of, I was mad at him, like I was pissed at him
Right.
because, in my mind, he chose to go and
Hmm.
do drugs and then die. This is not really how it works. Right? Like with your bulimia, you didn't choose to throw up. There was something in your brain telling you, I got to go do it. And like you said, even after you didn't want to, your body still got used to it and did it anyways.
Right.
So it took a lot of processing, and that's why the writing was very therapeutic, to kind of come to a place where I forgave him, even though, I could still be mad and forgive him.
Mm. I did during my research. Suicide obviously came up because many pro athletes, especially Olympians, are very predisposed to suicidal thoughts, because they come back from the Olympics and it's just such a letdown because everyone's moved on.
Yeah.
Um, it was really funny, like not funny, ironic that the happiest of the medal winners are the bronze medal winners. They're the
Huh.
happiest. You would think the gold, you can almost understand silver, right? To get so close and then come in second. And gold,
Yeah.
you think, well, they'll be happy. But what happens after they get gold is they go back, and one, either just they're on top of the world for those few weeks and then people just move on and they're just
Mhm.
forgotten. Two, they don't know what to do next, or the thought of, oh God, another 4 years of this kind of training and intensity in my life, and I gotta repeat now.
Yeah.
So they go through their levels, but the bronze medal winners, there's mainly the ones who were the happiest were the ones that they didn't think they were, only they thought they were ever going to win a medal. Nobody else thought they were going to win a medal. So they did above and beyond. And then other ones
Okay.
who just had a bad Olympics and maybe they were supposed to win gold and they got bronze, they were disappointed, but then it gave them something to look to go after next. So
Huh.
believe it or not, the bronze medal winners tend to be the happiest of the three medal winners. And silver, they just feel a lot of disappointment in many cases, and questioning themselves, like what went wrong, what did I do, and
Hmm.
they get kind of depressed as well. So yeah, you have a lot of, and so suicide is a real thing
Oh yeah.
for Olympians. And one of the things during the research was, about what they really think, what goes through their minds, the people who attempted and then failed at their suicide, is saying they thought that the world would be better without them, that they were a drag on their family, that
Yeah.
they were in so much pain that they couldn't see that they offered no value and they saw no way out. And
Yeah.
that was usually the way where it came to in suicide is, and I never knew about the saw no value because I kind of saw it like you, it's, well, it's a selfish thing, it's this and that. But in their case, they're actually not being selfish, they're just distraught to a level where they feel they have zero value and that they're only dragging people down and that the world will be better without them, which is an incongruous statement because we all know these are people that we love and care for, and maybe would just be people we rooted for.
Hmm.
And to hear, and that's why it gets so sad when we come to the nature of suicide. But it's a tough topic and tough when it happens within the family, and compassion and understanding um, is good. Forgiveness is mainly for ourselves more than the other person.
Exactly.
um,
And he's not
and
even
helping
here, right? So
process.
it's definitely for me.
Yeah. So I'm glad you're able to process that. And we miss them, right? We miss them.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's
There
the
was
part that hurts.
sometimes I'd be walking down the street, I'm like, Brandon? I'm like, no, that's not possible. But you
Yeah.
look very similar to. So
Right.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so when did you start? Just because we haven't had a lot of people on the show with talking about eating disorders. We've had a few, but not as many as like depression,
Hmm.
anxiety. So when did your bulimia start?
15.
And being on like the wrestling team and all of that stuff, were you able to talk about it? Because
Oh God, no.
I wasn't trying to jump to a conclusion, but really, my
Oh no.
assumption is that
No, no,
being
no.
on a wrestling team, male dominated area, you don't
I,
talk about that stuff.
Randy, I've only come to be able to talk about it in the last year or two. So nobody knows. I mean, so your listeners, most of the people I know don't know that about me.
Okay.
It's not something I talked about. There's a lot of shame around it. Men aren't supposed to have body issues and eating disorders. And then I met a filmmaker who wrote, who did a whole film on, it was in 2018. One of my screenplays won an award, and
Oh,
we got
cool.
to talking, and yeah, he did. And he wrote a whole, real documentary on male eating disorders. And we still have the dysmorphia, still have the body issues and things like that. It's just so, being dead honest, I think even after I left wrestling and started in martial arts, it still continued because when I went into the girls' rooms in college, now I was pretty shy and just trying to break out of my shell. I
Hmm.
would look at the pictures on the wall and I don't look like those guys. I just don't have those genetics. Even when
Yeah.
I was 98 pounds, I still had, my dad gifted me his love handles. And it's like, even at 98 pounds starving, I still had those. And that's just part of my body, and just rejecting, because I felt, okay, well, I won't look like that, so they won't ever love me. And that
Hmm.
was the cycle of thought that went through my mind. So I figure, well, I'll just work out more, I'll get thinner, and then maybe I'll get some acceptance. And it's just a very damaging cycle that you go through. And it's not, and fortunately, I said, I there wasn't, options for therapy when I was that young and things like that. I was able to get myself through it, that, and through my Buddhist studies and understanding of the self, and through meditation, through mindfulness, through looking at the truth, and then being able to go through and uncover where the damage was and where those thoughts of not good enough and not being lovable or anything like that, and looking at those. It is still, sometimes hard, but there is a part of embracing a healthier lifestyle for my mind and my body, and understanding how now it's a different part. It's like I don't have those kind of issues, but now as I age,
Yes.
and seeing my body through aging and things not healing as fast. And I'm still very, very active. I still practice judo, and I still like to be very, very active. And
Hmm.
I work my body hard, and sometimes it wants to tap out.
I
And you
hear you.
forget, it's not unusual for men. We forget, as we get into our 50s, and we forget like we're not 30 anymore and things. But now, again, it's then looking at one's own ego and ourself, and being able to accept who we are, as we age, as our bodies just, if we defined our life or our success or our self-image through our bodies, it's going to change. We're
Yeah.
going to get old. It's going to do things, and that's a very
I
dangerous thing to focus so much on just your outward appearance.
I love how you wrapped that up there with, if we put the self-worth on the image, it changes, right? And so that's something I've been working through as I age. Because yeah, when I was 15, 16, I could eat anything I wanted and I was still super skinny. Because, and I had people tell me, a person in particular, say, "Oh, that boy just likes you because you're so skinny. You're the cute one because you're so skinny."
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I had to be the skinny one because,
Hmm.
right? Um, that's not true. And it's not that, and it's like, what is skinny? Right? What defines that? Is it
Hmm.
my giant hips, my lack of hips, my whatever, right? So
Hmm.
um those thoughts get into your head. And then especially, I can only speak from female perspective because that's the body I have. But when, as we age, our hormones change. And I know that men's hormones change too, but our hormones go through like multiple serious changes from having a baby, and then you're not, right, once you're pregnant your hormones change, then you have the baby and your hormones change, and then, I mean, I've only had one, but if you have multiple, then your hormones are going up and down all the time. Then we have menopause and it's changing it, right? Like that's, it's never really ending, it feels like, with the hormones. And as those hormones change, our metabolism changes, our body composition changes. And so it can be really difficult to wrap our heads around, this is just how my body is. This is the shape of my body and it's okay. Right? Uh, so you had mentioned, your dad had gifted you love handles. That's not a bad thing. But when you hear the term love handles, we immediately think, oh, love handles, right? Like my, I don't even know. I think it was from my dad's side because my mom's side, my grandma's like short and stocky. She gifted me my really wonderful broad shoulders. Whereas my mom is like this big, right? Tiny. And so I can't measure myself against anyone else, just like nobody can. Nobody should. And it's like my body is different than your body. And
Well, we
that's what I
even
want
have,
viewers to hear. Yeah.
yeah, and then even like things that the metrics, even BMI, body mass index.
Yeah.
If you are a person who's compact like I am and muscular, it shows that I'm obese. I'm like,
Yeah.
no. I mean, I was in my weight class. I'm absolutely not. And it doesn't make sense because I'm
Mm.
5'6", and it shows like what my weight should be is like 130. No, there's no way. I got
Yeah.
big legs
BMI
and
is,
shoulder, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, so I tell people, don't look at that body. You're just going to be depressed, because I'm like, there's no way. Because I remember showing my trainer, I'm like, look, it still has me as overweight. I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
I think at that time I was in, the one of the best shapes he got me in my life, even when I was training, and it was still showing me as overweight when I was in like 29-inch jeans. Like, you
Yeah.
got to be kidding me. Like, there's no way. Even me with whatever dysmorphia I have, and I'm like, even that, I'm like, no, that's bullshit.
Yep.
And I think so. You have to really be careful, because the things that are out there don't necessarily serve everybody.
Yeah.
And you have to, and a lot of people have turned to, how do your clothes fit? How's that? And I think that's a good metric, even more than the scale, because it all depends on that. So I think
Yes.
it's really how you feel good about yourself. what you're doing. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating well? Are you exercising? For me, exercise is really important. It gets those endorphins that I need. And I do enjoy doing really hard things. And that's just, because I'm a little bit crazy. And I have to, my trainers would try stuff out on me, and then they would decide if they wanted to do it to their class. They're like, well, if he can do it.
Nice.
And because I was just like, okay, I'm here to be tortured. But it was fun. I mean, I enjoy it. You spend enough time around senseis, and then you just learn how to enjoy that stuff.
Right.
And the same thing with athletes, as we look at pro athletes, and they go through their issues too, like what happens after retirement or after an injury, or and so much happens that they were so used to being able to eat whatever they wanted during their playing days, but then you're burning 4,000 or 5,000 calories a day, so you can. But now they're not doing that, and then they come up with issues as well. So it's you have to constantly be adjusting and watching, and but yet don't, like, trying not to be obsessive yet be diligent, right? So there's a balance there, right, between being diligent about your health and your mental health and your physical health, but without being obsessive. And that's a really tough line. That's a real razor's edge to walk.
I'm still working on that one every day. Yep, every day. Because it's like, okay, well, I want to be healthy, but then if I step on the scale and it shows me a number, I'm like, ooh, no. And then I'm obsessed with what I'm eating. Meanwhile, I don't need to be, because I was already eating healthy anyways. So yeah, the number on the scale, always take it with a grain of salt. I like your thing. How do your clothes feel? And you know what? I have sized up in my pants, and they feel great, and I look great, and I feel great. Like, so it's okay, right? As long as you're feeling good. And we had, remember, like naturopath and this nutritionist that we saw, they were awesome, because it wasn't like cut all of this out. It was like, okay, how about instead of a whole scoop of this, we're going to do a half a scoop, so you can still have the yumminess, but we're still, balancing it with your training. Like, that's when I was competing, balancing it with your training and stuff.
Right.
And going back to the hormones, that's the nutritionist with the hormone changes and stuff. And then the one thing I like to tell my clients, so I'm a personal trainer as well. I have a couple clients, and the one girl, she loves going, the number on the scale hasn't changed. I've been doing this, I've been doing that. And I go, okay, how many push-ups did you just do? She's like, oh no, like 20. I'm like, okay, and how many push-ups could you do like 6 months ago? None. Well, then something's changed, right? Just because the number on the scale doesn't change doesn't mean that your body isn't realizing all of the awesome work that you are doing for it. And so feel good about that stuff.
You mentioned about nutrition, and I had a nutritionist for a while, and I also do intermittent fasting and things that's worked really well. I don't like it. Like, I like eating at night. My body does not. So you have to learn that. But the one thing that she had that was her genius is she had something called a balanced day. And that one day a week, whatever day it was, you could have whatever you wanted. Didn't matter. And you would think that people go crazy, but you don't. You still manage it. But the thing that it does, like, every diet has 100% chance of failure over time, right? It will fail, right? So with the balanced day, it puts that in there. So like, say, you're going to go out with your husband on Friday, and you're going to have a nice dinner, and that's going to be your balanced day dinner. So Wednesday comes and they're serving, some kind of sweet at the office or wherever. It's easy for you to go, no, because I'm going to have that on Friday. It's not like I'll never get it ever because it's a diet that lasts forever and ever. You now have this opportunity to say, oh, well, I can wait 2 more days. I have that much willpower. And if there's something else changed, then you go, great, well, I'm going to switch my balance day to this day. And I found that was real, because it gave you that opportunity to say, I can have whatever I want and not feel bad about it, not shame yourself about it. And also, it's just realistic, because again, every diet over time has 100% chance of failure.
Yeah. And going back to our um, high level athletes, when we're cutting weight, we're on whatever strict diet we're on. And then as soon as it's over, at least for me and many of the other competitors I know, once it's over, you go and you binge
Very
because, oh,
unhealthy.
I can eat all of this. And then you put on 10, 15 pounds. Oh, wait, I have another fight coming up. Now I got to lose again. Yes, it's
Yeah,
very unhealthy. It's
it's
not a
really
good way to do
unhealthy.
it. Yeah.
That ballooning is definitely not what you want to do to your body. And I was actually part of a study when I was started to think when I was 15. I was really tiny. I was my freshman year in high school, so I was 14. I was 4'11", 88 pounds. It
Okay.
was really, really, and my parents were concerned. My parents aren't big either. So I was part of this study at St. Joseph's Children's Hospital in Newark about how athletic activity stimulates growth hormones. And while I was playing soccer and doing and I did various things in spring sports, I was above my growth curve. It was only during wrestling where although the athletic activity and the aerobic activity is the most intense, because I wasn't eating, I would go below my growth curve.
Mm,
And it
yeah.
just shows you how diet and not restricting yourself. And then, like you said, when I didn't have the restriction, my food choices became poor. I went for the
Yes.
brownie, I went for the cookies, I went for the sweet things, rather than eating healthy all the way along, and maybe every once in a while, right?
Oh, yeah, we
So
gotta have treats.
yeah, of course, which again, brings it back that balance day. So it's so important, I think, really to understand, who you are in your diet or rather than calling it a diet, call it your eating plan.
That
Um,
was huge, actually. So with my kid, he was having a lot of body image issues, and we were going to the dietitian, and she was super sweet. She was like, I'm not going to tell you what you can or can't eat because, I mean, you're young. I don't want that to be in your brain." She goes, "I'll show you." She showed him a few different recipes or whatever, and it was more about, you know, if you have a choice between, A and B, which one's the healthier choice, right? And it might be, hey, instead of having six cookies, I'm having two cookies. Like even that is
mhm,
a healthier choice
right.
because especially with kids, like it's such a balance as a parent to try and teach healthy habits without, using those terms of, fat, skinny, good for you, bad for you.
Mm.
It's so hard, and I'm definitely struggling with it. I'm trying real hard, as most parents probably are. And but she was really good about, hey, instead of four cookies, have two cookies and an apple. The apple will fill you up. Maybe try the apple first, because then you
Right.
might not want the cookies after, right? And it's just like switching little tiny things like that, where it's like, oh yeah, now I'm not hungry, so now I don't want the cookies anyways.
One, because if you do have a sweet tooth, and I know I do, and sometimes you get the cravings, my nutritionist taught me that sometimes that's a protein being need masked as sugar. So keep some cashews around and keep some the other, almonds, cashews, walnuts, pecans, things like that, and try that and see if it goes away. Because so many times, or water, even sometimes your body is dehydrated and
That's,
it's
yep.
resting and it feels like a sugar craving. So even then, go drink a glass of water, see how you feel. Try not to give in to those spikes and then lows and things like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. We're not saying you can't have them. Absolutely not. We are not
No,
nutritionists, dietitians. We are just sharing our experience.
yeah,
But that's a big one that I had to learn was just go drink water. Like I'm constantly dehydrated going, oh yeah, when was the last time I drank some water? Like water is good for me. I need it.
I,
But
I
it's
definitely drink less water. I was thinking about this the other day, right, that I drink less water when I'm here than when I'm in Barbados. And of course, it's 85 and sunny every day, but just I always have water. And you really don't leave home without having water, just because it does get really, really strong. The sun's really strong.
that makes sense. Yeah.
So now I have to kind of boost up my water intake here. And some people swear by the 32 ounces first thing in the morning.
Oh,
That, you know, I don't know, that would be tough for me,
Yeah,
but
I definitely like to spread mine out, but again, every body is different, so do what
yep.
works best for you. Just know that your body is amazing. So we've talked about a lot of different things.
Mm.
And at first you had said, you had willpower, so you were able to stop yourself. But then you also sort of delved into how your meditation, Buddhism teaching, there was a few other things that you
Mhm.
listed. What is one or two of those things that really, really helped you? How did you go about finding them, doing them, so that if anybody was like, hey, that sounds interesting, how would they go about
Mhm.
finding information?
Well, there's a million and one books on meditation, and I think there's all different kinds, and I think there's things to find out. Buddhism, there's many different flavors of Buddhism too. I mean, the book that kind of really got me interested was Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. I read it in college, and that really got me interested in studying, like, who is this person? And it's kind of like a fictionalized tale of the life of the Buddha, and kind of the things that he went through. And there's lots of other good books. I mean, two of my favorites that I love are Surfing the Himalayas and Snowboarding to Nirvana by Dr. Frederick Lenz. Those are two that I really love. And if you're an athlete, I think you really appreciate that, because he uses sort of like the Zen in sports and brings it into Buddhism, and how connecting with whatever task that you're doing uh, is, and especially as an athlete, and then making that, because honestly, I've had some of the most profound moments I've had have been on the mat, not on the cushion, and
Yes.
stepping on the mat, and there's something about the whole world kind of goes away, and I don't even hear the crowd. I barely even hear my coaches, and it's
Yep.
just myself and my opponent, and you're so, I'm so focused, and everything is very heightened, and a lot of times, like, after, I had to always check the film because I had no idea what throw I used when I won a match. I had to go look because I didn't know. I didn't
Yep.
know. And that's, sort of, and that's a really, now you're in that flow state where your body is just doing what it should naturally. Your higher self is the one competing. And if your higher self is the one that competing, you're always going to win. So, because you're not delved into ego and fear and anxiety about it.
Yeah.
I didn't get nervous. Where I did get nervous wrestling, I didn't get nervous in judo. I think the process of meditation. I was also older, competing in my 20s, and judo
Yeah.
wasn't my whole world. I still had my business I was running, and friends and things outside. So it wasn't my whole world. Like, as a teenager, your athletics really becomes such a central part of
Yes.
your identity, who you are, your social, how you receive any accolades or acceptance, where it was different as an older one. So I really wasn't, if I lost, I lost. I didn't like it, of course. I, would beat myself up and try to figure out what happened. But it
Hmm.
wasn't the end of the world, because I wasn't, this wasn't going to be my career. Um,
That's a
it
really
was
good
something
point.
fun.
That's a really good point. Because, yeah, I think similar. Yeah, I'm trying to, I'm thinking back and I'm like, yeah, as a kid, the things, you get wrapped up into things because you don't have anything else. And then as an adult, you're like, wait, I gotta go
Yeah.
take care of my kids, or I'm gonna go to work, or I'm gonna, have go with my spouse, whatever.
So my recent blog that I'm finishing up, that's going for this month, is about, I in my coach's corner blog, I talk about how to handle your mental health of your child athlete. And one of them in this
Mm.
one is, what do you do when, so it's like, the first one was like, what do you do when the coach is wrong? This is, what do you do when your child loses or even blows the game? So think about this. So say you're at work, if for your listeners, and you're supposed to give a presentation to the board, your management, and you go in and you mess it up completely. I mean, really, people are poking holes in it. You missed the
Mm.
presentation, you missed the page. I mean, you blew it. You walk out of that presentation feeling humiliated, feeling, definitely, oh my God, there goes my bonus. Uh-oh, am I going to get fired? When you came
Hmm.
home that night, what mental state are you going to be in? Right? And that's no
Yeah.
different than when that child comes home, and I don't care if it's little league or junior wrestling or soccer and
Yeah.
travel team. When you come back knowing, that miss kick lost the game, or not covering someone and they got through and scored, or you just weren't ready on the mat and you really gave up, you did something a little bit silly and you gave up your back and you got pinned. So to them, in their world, because that is their world and it is so small, that's the end of the world. That's,
Yeah.
again, that's where they're social. That's how they identify themselves. So it's so important for parents of athletes to really give their student athlete a more rounded view. Don't make sports everything and everything. Make sure they're
Hmm.
involved in other things. Because they're going to compartmentalize their life as like, oh, I feel really good when I'm on the field. So when things go bad, now what? And the same thing for the parent is, don't minimize how they're feeling. Allow them to go through this pain and suffering and be there with them. But don't do, oh, in 2 weeks it won't matter. Oh,
Ugh.
you'll get over it. Oh, it'll be okay. No, because right now it is the most painful thing they can think of. It's bad enough we lost, but now everyone knows it's my fault. And with social media, who knows what comments are being made. And now I'm getting these texts and people are they're blaming me for everything. And now it can really drive you that you, like we were talking about before, that you don't see an end in sight because you don't have the wisdom, you don't have the experience as a 14, 15, 16-year-old to see that there is life 2 weeks from now, because all because your world is so small, is right now. So as a parent of a child athlete, it's really allowing them to feel that, letting them get upset. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid of their upsetness and let them feel it and comfort them and see what they need. And I know they're trying to be helpful with the words of affirmation of it'll be better, this, that. But sometimes
Yeah.
all you're doing is making it worse for them. So it's
Hmm.
hard to just sit there. And I think sometimes parents have a hard time because they feel the pain of their child, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah, we definitely do.
right. And
Yeah.
maybe even just as much as that. And they hate seeing them suffer. So they're trying to do anything they can to remove the pain. But now I'm going to ask a parent, sit there with them in their pain and take it with them. And it's horrible. It's absolutely
Hmm.
horrible. But to be able to sit there and show your mental toughness as well as your love and compassion and sit there with them with it.
So what was
Take
that
these
name
things.
of your blog again so people can read more?
It's Coach's Corner, and it's on my website, so chriskjones.com. And so that one, it'll come out in the next couple of days. But yeah, that one's, I mean, and it was really interesting watching Kayla Harrison. She just lost for the first time. She was the only gold medalist in judo. She's won it twice, and turned to MMA, mixed martial arts, and
Yeah.
she's been an undefeated fighter, and she lost for the first time. And there's this great interview. If any of your listeners, they go out to just Kayla, Kayla Harrison, and do her press conference, and she stands up there and she's crying and she's upset. And even they say, why did you come out? I'm like, well, I'm a parent and I have to be, this is a horrible, horrible day for me as an athlete. It's
Yeah.
horrible. It sucks. But as a parent, I have to show my children this is what you do. And she's a true champion. I've seen her
That's
compete.
awesome.
Yeah, watch the video. She's cries in it. I mean, this is like one of the toughest women on the planet. And absolutely,
Yeah.
she's amazing, but she's also an amazing human being. And I've seen her compete, and even like one match I saw her where her opponent got hurt and she picked her up and walked her across the mat. So she's a true
Wow.
champion. Yeah, she's a true champion in all sense, a nice human being. But yet, as a competitor, we still want to leave it, and the loss hurts. But the
Oh
fact that
yeah.
she stood up there, took those questions, cried through them, and answered them really honestly with a lot of vulnerability, I think it's a really good thing to watch, whether you're an athlete or not. It's just how people, when we do have those moments where life doesn't go our way,
And
and
we're
how we deal with,
definitely gonna have those moments.
yeah, that's a lot, and how we deal with them. So, I think that's really, really important too.
Okay. So I love asking all of my guests, if you were to meet somebody and let's say a teenage athlete, what is some of the best advice that you would give them if they're about to go into a competition and then afterwards if they lost?
The question I would ask them is, did you feel you did your best? Did you? And sometimes there's someone, the thing you always learn in martial arts, there's always someone in any sport, there's always someone bigger, badder, better, faster, stronger. There's always someone who's going to kick your ass, always. And today, like Kayla Harrison said in her interview, sometimes you're the hammer and sometimes you're the nail. And today I was the nail. So today you were the nail. It's going to happen.
I like that.
And so now just use that to go on. So that actually did happen. When I coached my boys in soccer, we went undefeated. And so these boys hadn't lost. They were beating teams that hadn't lost in a long time. And they were really up about it. And then in the next season, we lost. And the boys came out and they were sitting all around and they're all moping. I'm like, well, boys, how's that feel? Like, we don't like it. It's not. I'm like, well, good. You need this. You have another game tomorrow. Let's see what happens. And they came back the next day and they won 7-0. And I said, that's how you respond. So it's really, really important that you allow them to feel that. And I wasn't, if anything, I was like, okay, good. Maybe they needed this.
Yeah.
And right. And I can't see it in my ego of like, oh, as the coach, I want this undefeated team. And I was very happy we went undefeated. I was very proud of that. It's one of my proudest athletic accomplishments is to have an undefeated team. It's a very difficult thing to do. And at any league, at any point, and it's very, very hard to do. So many things have to go right.
Yes.
And with younger kids, that means there's much more random things that can happen as opposed to professionals. The level of randomness is so much higher. I mean, anyone can score at any point in the game. But it was really good for them to experience that. And, I use soccer as a metaphor for life. And I always tried to teach them things, to help them in life afterwards, because it's only, it's just a game. That's all it is. Much as I love it, it's just a game. But yet I can, really try to help them. And it was good to see them up, like they were all pissed off about it. And that's a good reaction.
Yeah.
And now you understand it. And now you're a little bit more compassionate towards when other teams lose.
That's
right?
true.
And so they learn that, and they learn these lessons. And I think it's very important as the coach. And the last thing I was going to do is criticize, because it just wasn't our day. What it just wasn't our day. And they had to experience that. And they came back and responded. And then I was proud of them for that. And I told them so. And I think that's really the important thing of letting them know, like, did you go out and do your best? And another one of, I trained with the Barbados Judo Olympic team. And, one of the Olympians there was a close friend of mine. He said a lot of times, like, people said, well, it wasn't my best. But it was. On that day that you competed, think about that was your best for that day.
Yeah.
So think about the matches that you had that you probably should have won. And for whatever reason, you just didn't have it that day. Or maybe, you attempted something that was a little bit risky and you got caught. You took your opponent a little bit too light. But that for that day, that was your best.
Yeah.
And another day, your best was that much higher. But on this day, so accept that and realize, okay, so it's a level of acceptance and say, tomorrow's another day. Doesn't mean that the pain's going to go away. And I'm not a big believer of just saying, okay, well, that's tomorrow, forget about it. What did you learn? What did you learn from your defeat? What can you do better?
Yeah.
What did that person do that maybe you can learn from? So I had one tournament where a guy beat me twice in the same tournament. So in judo, it's double elimination.
Oh, okay.
So he beat me first, and I had to go through what's called repechage and go and fight my way all the way back to the finals, where I got him again. and then he beat me again. And I was like, wow. So I studied film. I'm like, you better come the next time. And I studied the film over and over again. I practiced harder. I did things that I knew he was doing, but he didn't show up at the next tournament, and I walked through the tournament. But those things, like, that's inspiration. Like, turn it into an inspiration rather than, just allowing it to define you as that one loss or, what happened. Feel the pain. It's okay to feel pain. It's okay
Yep.
to understand where that comes from, and then see what you can do to make the next time a little bit better. And maybe you win and maybe you don't.
Awesome. Okay, and so you've mentioned your book a couple of times. So we know it's called Head Case. We know a little bit about what it's about. But do you want to just give us a little elaboration?
Sure. So Dr. Andrew Beck is the go-to sports psychologist for troubled athletes. But when his own addictions to gambling and his childhood traumas surface, he makes a bet with a gangster using his insider knowledge on athletes that eventually leads them down this dark path of blackmail, a mysterious murder, and life or death bluffing. And it's really a lot about, if you don't discover your demons, they'll destroy you, and just the generational traumas that he's experienced. And all my characters, I talk about their generational trauma and where it comes from. And so he's a wonderful therapist, but yet he's compartmentalized his own life in a way that now he's living this idyllic life, wonderful wife and house in Greenwich and flying private, and he's counseling pro athletes, but yet his gambling addiction, because although he walked away, he was a prodigy in golf at 5, and his father was a Masters champion, but he hated playing, and his father was abusive. And so he walked away at 18 as the top ranked amateur in the world as an FU to his father. But he still had this competition, this need for competition, and he got it out through playing poker, which, because now he could use all of his insights as a psychologist, the reading facial expressions, mind, body movements, and understanding how people reacted. And he just wanted to get into people's heads. And that's where he got his thrill. So he got in trouble. And you see his life slowly go down. It's a series. So I'm working on the second book now. This is the first one. First one is called Shock and Denial. And we just kind of see his life. It takes place a week in his life, in just 1 week, and we just see him go from, the top of the world, and he starts.
Only a week, eh? It's amazing what can happen in such a short time.
Yeah, it really is. It's and we take him through, and it's 380 pages. And although there's a lot of masculine concepts in it, what my female readers have really enjoyed is, like, one said it was a really interesting view into the male psyche. And I didn't think about it when I was writing it, because it's written in third person close, where the only point of view is Andrew's point of view. So you're with him, what he's thinking, what he's feeling,
yes,
what's going on in his body, what he sees, tastes. So you're with him all the way, and it's like being a fly on the wall. So if you wanted to know how a man thinks, there's a lot in that. And I didn't write it for that purpose. It was just came out that way. And
I don't know if I want to know, be in a man's mind.
and a lot of people who aren't sports fans, they really enjoyed it, because it's less about the sport and more about the human story of athletes and what happens when we all have this generational trauma from our parents and their parents, and you can see how every character is influenced by their generational trauma and how they're dealing it. A lot about family, a lot about relationships, and when we make bad decisions, what happens?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
And awesome. It's also audio too. The audio book is coming out. It was performed by PJ Oakland, an award-winning actor and voice talent. And there were over 60 speaking parts in this, and he did all of their voices, and he was amazing. And so really, it was such an honor to work with him, and and hear my work come to life through his voice and through the many voices
Yes,
of
many
people.
voices.
So it's on pre-order, and it's actually was just rated in audiobooks.com as one of the top upcoming books. So it's out there now if you go to audiobooks.com. And yeah, it's
Is it going to be on Audible?
Audible. Yeah, it's going to be on every audio
Because
platform.
that's the
Audible,
one I
Apple.
have.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's and if you want to go to my website at chriskjones.com, you can download the first 7 chapters for free if you sign up on the mailing list. And if you go to the buy book section and you go to audio, you can listen to 5 minutes of the book, the first 5 minutes or so.
Excellent. And where else do people follow you?
So on email, if your listeners want to reach out, they have anything specific, headcase@chriskjones.com. If they have anything specific, I'd be happy to answer it. Headcase at headcase_novel is on Instagram, and Chris K. Jones author on Facebook, and Christopher K. Jones on LinkedIn.
Excellent. And we're going to stick all those links down in the description below anyways, so we can make it nice and easy for everybody. Any final thoughts to share with the audience?
Yeah, I mean, the final thought is really try to understand your mind and understand where your mental health is. It's so important. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay not to feel good, and don't think anything's wrong with you because you're just being human. And be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with others. Be gentle with yourself. And we all have our something, and it's figuring that out. It's like our life's mission and how to come over it. So listening to podcasts like yours, Randy, going out and finding the books and the TV shows and the things that will help you. And yeah, if talk therapy is a really good thing. Talking to a therapist is helpful. And I'm a big fan of it, and finding the other things too: yoga, exercise, martial arts, just going for a walk. You'd be surprised that when you're feeling anxious, if you can get out and just go for a walk, 20 minutes later, I guarantee you'll probably feel better.
Yeah, outside is a wonderful place to be. Well, thank you again so much for being on the show. Yeah, we look forward to the next in the series of your books.
Yeah, I got to get going. I got to get, people are asking me about it. I'm like, oh boy. So yeah.
Well, that's the problem with the series, right? As soon as I read the first one, I'm like, hey, where's the next one? What do you mean it's not written yet? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, Randy. I really appreciate your time. I enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for asking those questions. And these are, they're not things I really talk a whole lot about. So thank you for making an open and welcoming environment.
You're so welcome. As always, thank you so much for the amazing guests that we have on the show. Be sure to check out their links down in the description below. If you want to support the channel, go ahead and check out our merch store. We've got some very cool things on there. That's my favorite. Sorry, I'm busy ending the stigma. But there's some other very cool designs. 10% of the proceeds always goes back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at RB Media, because we have some great new shows coming up and you never want to miss any of those episodes. And remember, the only way to end the stigma of mental health is to speak openly and honestly. Bye.